Jaya Giravardhari. Jaya Yasodanandana Jaya Brajadandaranjana Jaya Brajadandaranjana. Jaya Yasodanandana Jaya Brajadandaranjana Jaya Brajadandaranjana. Jaya Jamunnathirvannachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Jamunnathirvannachari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Yamunnathirvannachari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Giravardhari Jaya Giravardhari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Giravardhari Jaya Giravardhari. Yasodanandana Jaya Brajadandaranjana Jaya Brajadandaranjana. Yasodanandana Jaya Brajadandaranjana Brajadandaranjana. Jaya Jamunatira Vandachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Jamunatira Vandachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Go Hari Bo. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Go Hari Bo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupada, Paramahamsa, Gururaja Ki Jai, Jai Sri Shri Śrīmad Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Morning Ki Jai. Go to Premanandi. Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Give me some tissues from the locker. Yeah. Om Gyantimirandasya Jananjana Salaka Chakshuram Ditanjana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Swaha. That's a habit. So we're reading verse 9. Writing gets smaller as I get older. Sanat Kumaro Bhagavan Yad Ahad Yat Mikam Param Yogam Taneva Purusham Abhajat Purushashaba Sanat Kumaro Bhagavan Yad ahajat mikam padam Yogam teneva purusham Abhajat purusharshaba Sanat Kamaro Bhagavan Yad ahajat mikam padam Yogam teneva purusham Abhajat purushashaba Sanat Kumara, Sanat Kumara, Bhagavan, most powerful, yet that which Aha said, Adhyatmikam, spiritual advancement of life, Padam, ultimate, Yogam, mysticism, Tena, by that, Eva, certainly, Purusham, the Supreme Person, Abhajat, worshipped, Purusha Rishabha, the best of human beings. Translation: thus, the best amongst human beings, Maharaj Prithu, followed the path of spiritual advancement, which was advised by Sanat Kumara. That is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In this verse, it is clearly said that Maharaj Prithu, practicing the pranayama yoga system, engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as advised by the saint Sanat Kumara. In this verse, the words Purusham Abhajat Purushashabha are significant. Purushashabha refers to Maharaj Prithu, the best amongst human beings, and Purusham refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that the best man amongst all men engages in the service of the Supreme Person. One Purush is worshipable, and the other Purush is the worshipper. When the Purush who worships the living entity thinks of becoming one with the Supreme Person, he simply becomes bewildered and falls into the darkness of ignorance, as stated by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 2.12. All living entities assembled in the battlefield, as well as Krishna himself, were also present in the past as individuals and would continue to be present in the future as individuals also. Therefore, the two Purushas, the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, never lose their respective identities. Actually, one who is self-realized engages himself in the service of the Lord perpetually, both in this life and in the next. Indeed, for devotees, there is no difference between this life and the next. In this life, a neophyte devotee is trained to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in the next life, he approaches that Supreme Person in Vaikuntha and renders the same devotional service. Even for the neophyte devotee, devotional service is considered Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Devotional service to the Lord is never considered a material activity. Since he is acting on the Brahma Buddha platform, a devotee is already liberated. He therefore has no need to practice any other type of yoga in order to approach the Brahma Buddha stage. If the devotee adheres strictly to the orders of the spiritual master, follows the rules and regulations, and chants the Hare Krishna mantra, it should be concluded that he is already at the Brahma Buddha stage, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Manchayo vyabhyacharina Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samiti Chaitan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. One who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Very wonderful purport there. So, in my last Bhaktivedanta class, we were having a discussion, and some of the devotees were listening to some lectures by, a very big devotee, they called them, in India. And he was saying that in ISKCON, unless one is a 100% pure devotee of the Lord, like Sukadeva Goswami, Hare called, that they have to perform the various Vedic purification rituals, Varnashram, and ceremonies. They're obligated to do that because they're not on the platform of pure devotional service, and therefore they're actually, if one is not on the platform of pure devotional service, they're obliged, not being purified, to perform the other different purificatory processes of the Vedas that lead one to the stage where they can eventually take up pure devotional service. But actually, so it's interesting. This is a very difficult point to understand, even in ISKCON. That's the point of quoting that. That we've got senior devotees, even in ISKCON, preaching something which is completely, Prabhupada says something completely different in this purport. So, it's not an easy thing to understand. Now, of course, Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish Daivi Varnashram Dham because, for the mass of people, if the devotees, which they will be, given the opportunity to be seen as leaders of the community, the state, the nation, the world, many people will just take to devotional service, but of course others may not directly take to Krishna consciousness, in which case they will still have to be engaged under the direction of the devotees, and they will, be taught to to perform their duty according to the natural system, and to live a pious life with their family. Like that. So, very important principle. So therefore, Daivi Varnashram is there. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter, Krishna says that to Arjuna, Krishna has described that process, that we must perform our activities in such a way that they're in line with the regulations of the scriptures, and that everything is centered around pleasing the Supreme Lord Vishnu through Yajna. All of the activities of the Varnashram are one form of Yajna or another. All the duties of Varnashram are one form of Yajna or another. Whether those are the sannyasis practicing jnana or, Ashtanga, whether those of the, the Kshatriyas and the Grihasas, all perform, the Brahmacharis, they're all performing some type of Yajna. That's described in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, many different types of Yajna. All culminate in transcendental knowledge, Krishna says. If they don't perform Yajna, they become implicated, they're considered thieves, that they have obligations to so many persons in this world. The demigods, what we take is given by them on behalf of the Lord. If you take something without acknowledging and offering in return, you're a thief, and there's a karmic reaction. The great sages, the animals, like the cows, the trees, other human beings. You know, every day we jump in our car, we drive in the roads. We're obligated, you know, if you go up into the Dandenong Ranges, you see the pictures of the people building those roads. They got horse and buggy carts up these muddy, dangerous sides of the mountains there, you know, chalking out roads. And they died doing that. You know, in those days, it was you know, there's no, work cover, you know, and, you know, safety inspectors. You know, people just died building those roads. We just go for it, you know, let's go for a little sun. But we're obligated to those persons. So that is the Vedic process. Now, of course, if one performs yajna, so there are many different types of yajna, but if you perform yajna to Vishnu, then all your obligations to everyone is satisfied in that one act, and therefore the Vedas encourage that. Then Krishna tells Arjuna that, but if one takes pleasure in the self, which is the theme of this verse, what's it called? Adhyatmikam, spiritual adhyatmikam, atma, and adhyatmikam, spiritual advancement of life, advancement of self-realization. That's it. Coming to this Brahma Bhuta platform. I am pure consciousness. Krishna tells Arjuna that if one is, I'll read the verse, 3:17. Yes, tatmarati evashat atmatritabsta manava atmanyiva santushtastasya karyam navijite. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, now that self there has a capital S, because self-realization, Prabhupada says, he says, now don't blink, you may miss this, but Prabhupada describes self-realization. Everyone here want to be self-realized? 2 seconds. You want to be self-realized? You understand this. I'm part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. I'm the servant of God. Self-realized. Done. Business finished. That's it. So that concept, I'm a little spirit soul, and there is the Supreme Purush. I'm a person eternally, but a little spirit soul, eternally Purush, a person. Then there is the Supreme Person, one Supreme Person maintaining all other persons eternally, and one who understands, yes, I am a little spirit soul being maintained in all respects by the Supreme Person. That person is, that's self-realization. So one who takes pleasure in that, their whole life is centered around that, you know, wonderful realization, epiphany, that I'm eternal. You know, here I am in the material world. I have nothing to gain. I have nothing to lose. I really have no business here. Srila Prabhupada said Krishna had no business in the battle of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna had no business there. So, therefore, he says that for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, which is again the nature of this purport in the Bhagavatam, and who is satisfied in the self only, again a capital S. fully satiated, for him there is no duty. So then Krishna tells Arjuna, as he has summarized in the second chapter, when you become situated in the self, you become indifferent to everything you've heard in the Vedas. All those different processes, karma yoga, jnana yoga, you'll become indifferent to all of that. So, he explains that Naiva tasya kutenata na kuteneha kashina na chasya sarvabhuteshu kaschid atavyapashraya. A self-realized person has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. So, it describes here that such a person whose life is one of self-realization, engaged as always in relationship to pleasing the Supreme Lord, they have none of those duties to perform. They're not obligated. As Prabhupada puts it, Srila Prabhupada says it like this. He says, you know, for one who understands Krishna, so of course, to understand that the Supreme is a person, that is the goal of all the Vedas. The goal of all the Vedas is to understand that Krishna, to understand Krishna. All the Vedas are teaching us. If you understand Krishna, oh, here is the Supreme Person, and I am his servant, we're all his servant, spirit souls, then there's nothing further to be known. And that is to understand that, one either is considered to have performed all the Vedic processes, or that if they haven't done it, they get the result anyway. So, so Prabhupada says that for such a person, then all the Vedic religious rituals, penances, sacrifices, they're all nonsense. So, you know, for the devotee of the Lord, then all of those other things, they're all nonsense, Prabhupada says. Nonsense. And then he says this. Now, I'm quoting this, Prabhupada is speaking this in 1966 in New York. So you can imagine who his audience is. All Westerners. We'll get to that. And then he says, and if one doesn't know Krishna, then all of one's Vedic ritualistic activities, penances and sacrifices, they're all nonsense. Either way. So Krishna is saying that one must perform those activities. If one is not on that platform, their life is one of self-realization, Krishna consciousness, they must perform those activities. But it's you know, it is for the gradual process of purification. They're all different forms of yajna, and all those forms of yajna purify one's existence and gradually promote one to the point of transcendental knowledge. That will take one to the doorstep where one may then have a tendency to hear from sadhus about the eternal self, and amongst those sadhus, if one happens to be a devotee and one hears that the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, not an impersonal Brahman effulgence, then that person hearing that may take up devotional service if they hear from a devotee. Otherwise they'll never understand. Even if they read the Gita, if they don't hear it from a devotee. I was talking to some people the other day, and we were talking about the Bhagavad Gita. Oh yes, we read the Gita and everything like that. And so, we were talking the different principles and, so many things you can learn. And then someone popped out with this strange comment, because they watch the Mahabharata on Netflix and things like that. And one of them said, "Oh yes," and then Krishna revealed to Arjuna his divine self. I said, "What?" Yeah, that the universal form, his spiritual, he revealed his form as God. I said, no, the person is God. That is his universal form, but that is a little external. The actual supreme form, everything is coming from Krishna. They go, what? So, many people who read the Gita, that's their understanding, is that it's the universal form. And in fact, there's a book by Paramahamsa Yogananda, the autobiography of a yogi, very popular. And he says that Krishna teaches this process of Kriya Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita, where the universal form is to be meditated upon as the supreme. And it's very fashionable. People read it. I mean, I was reading that as a teenager. I'm 61 now. And still they're reading that book. Very popular, And it was a Paramahamsa Yogananda. So, unless they hear from a devotee, they'll never understand that the ultimate goal of the Vedas is to know the person who is the supreme person, and that person is Krishna, Bhagavan. So, if they don't understand that, they need to perform the different Vedic principles. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Stanga Yoga, like that. So then Krishna says to Arjuna, you don't have to do that. Still, Krishna says that, but whatever a great man does, others will follow. So Prabhupada rephrases that Arjuna, I want you to be a great example that people will follow. Therefore, and he said, even I perform duties. So I'm asking you to perform duties. You have no need to perform those duties. So Prabhupada's explaining that Arjuna had no business, nor did Krishna in the battle of Kurukshetra. They had no duty to perform. Krishna says in the same chapter, he says, there's no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems. Nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I'm engaged in prescribed duties. So, because he's God, he has no... he's not obligated to perform prescribed duties to satisfy he's obligated to the demigods, he's obligated to the saintly persons, he's obligated to anyone. Everyone is obligated to him. He has no obligation that I have to perform some duty to anyone. He's not in need of anything. Even as a little baby on the lap of Mother Yashoda, he was completely God, the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, full. He didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to do any work to become God. He was therefore, even as a little child, these very powerful demoniac personalities would try to kill him, and he was a little baby. He just a little fun. He was killing these demons. Sometimes a little kick of his little baby leg and kill some demon. Yeah, it's quite funny. The little baby leg goes up, boom, that demon dead. But Krishna said, but I'm engaged in performing duties, because if I didn't, people will follow me. And then the result is, if people who need to follow duties, those who are not on that platform of their life is one of self-realization, Krishna consciousness, the individual soul engaged in its eternal relationship with the Supreme Soul, for those who have to perform their duties, they need to follow someone to show them what those duties are and how they perform. Therefore, Krishna himself. So Krishna got married. But of course, because he's God, he performed his duties to show us what an ordinary human being should do. But because he's God, there was a little twist to it. So he married 16,108 queens. So at the time of the Bhagavad Gita, you see here, Prabhupada says, Krishna looks about maybe 16 to 20. Arjuna looks a little older, he says. Still quite young though. Krishna was about 86, 90 years old at that stage. He was a great-grandfather. He had 10 sons and some daughters to each of his 16,108 wives. He had, each of them got married and had 10 sons and some daughters, and then each of them did the same. At this stage, Krishna there has about 10 million family members. So, but still, he's showing his God, but at the same time, he's just, if you go to his home, he's just doing in each home, he's just one person doing his ordinary affairs, like that. So, therefore, actually, Krishna is saying, I want you to perform your duty. And Prabhupada says a very, interesting thing. Srila Prabhupada says, Arjuna perfectly performed karma yoga. Sometimes if you say to devotees, oh, you're doing karma yoga, they're insulted. I'm doing bhakti. I remember one time in Perth, one devotee, somewhere in 1980 or something, one devotee was preaching that on the asana. No one's doing devotional service, you're all doing karma yoga. You're going out and selling things. Everyone got so upset, And I hear this, Prabhupada saying, Arjuna performed karma yoga. But his karma yoga, he performed karma yoga to show people how to perform karma yoga, but his activity of performing karma yoga was an act of pure devotional service. That Krishna wants it because, as it says here, Arjuna, you have no duty to do. It says, such a person has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has any reason not to perform such work. Now, when Arjuna got to the battlefield, he actually arrived there with a purpose to fulfill. He was expecting a whole different result, but then when he saw that, I'm going to have to kill all of these persons who are relatives, teachers, friends, people are very dear to me, worshipful to me, respectable, for the purpose that I thought was going to be fulfilled, then I'm not going to do my work. So then Krishna explained to him, you don't have a duty to perform, but for the sake of leading people in the right way, I want you to do it. And therefore it says that such a person has no reason not to perform such work. And so Srila Prabhupada explains that, in the second chapter of the Gita, this is also explained, the art of work. Prabhupada explains it like this, there's a machine, just like this machine here, taking photos. There's an art to it. Someone who knows it, they can do it, and sometimes someone who doesn't know what they're doing, there's a lot of different pieces there that can, be pushed in the wrong way and wrong buttons, and all hell breaks loose in 2 seconds. So this material world it's a machine which the Supreme Lord is operating, because he knows the art of operating this machine, the material world. And he tells us what the art of working with this machine, this material world and these material bodies is, that if you perform your work without any purpose to fulfill, then you won't get you will not get a karmic reaction that forces you to take birth again, to get caught up in the cycle of birth and death. There should be no purpose. Even if one performs their prescribed duties, one is performing that for no purpose except that Krishna wants it. And if one is not performing one's prescribed duties, one is doing that for the purpose that Krishna wants it. So therefore Arjuna performed karma yoga because he was engaged in pure devotional service to Krishna. And karma yoga is within that, but more. Karma yoga means that, in one sense, generally when people perform karma yoga, they have a purpose. But Arjuna performed it without a purpose, therefore is also bhakti. The purpose of karma yoga is I'm doing my duty, but I'm getting so much karmic reaction, and the art of work is to, not get that karmic reaction, and not to take birth to attain liberation. Arjuna was acting only for the pleasure of Krishna, and in other words, every step of Arjuna, every blink of his eye, every movement of his body, every word was a yajna, was an offering, was a sacrifice to Krishna, just for the pleasure of the Lord. He's a yajna in motion. And, just like we perform Sankirtan yajna, dancing. Dancing is yajna. Eating prasadam, yajna, as part of the Sankirtan movement. So Arjuna, he was always engaged in yajna. There's no question that there's any karmic reaction, but nor was he interested in liberation, in personal liberation, any form of liberation. He was quite happy if you come to this material world to perform these pastimes as described in the Mahabharata, then I'm happy to come. At the end of the very Mahabharata, right, very end of the Mahabharata, the Pandavas, they're looking, where's Krishna going next? Wherever he goes, we'll go, like that. They're not interested in liberation, where Krishna goes, like that. So therefore it's not karma yoga in that sense. One who performs karma yoga trying to burn up the sinful reactions of their duties and trying to get themselves out of the cycle, they're performing karma yoga. But devotees don't do that. So this, as Srila Prabhupada explains, so if we have a look at this purport here, So the point is that one performs these duties without attachment. Now, devotees also, like Arjuna, one of the greatest needs in this world, as we said, is that generally, if Krishna said, if we don't set the right example, the main result is this unwanted population of children. And that just causes ruination to the world. So, Krishna showed that generally everyone, the men and the women, they should get properly married and raise children. And raise children in such a way that they're wanted, they're planned for. By a purification ceremony, they draw in the pure souls and they guide them in such a way that they can stop the cycle of birth and death, become fixed up in their life, can be dedicated to self-realization and go back to the spiritual world, like that. So, therefore, the whole world, all over the world, that should be the situation. Currently what happens, right, in Melbourne, they're having protests on the street. Stop killing the women. The men, you stop killing the women. So the current situation is that because the population, Bana Sankara, born from, people's sex attraction to each other, and children pop out here and there, they're giving birth to children like cats and dogs, I don't really care, and then instead of having family life, where actually good children are born and good children are trained, now we've produced children like cats and dogs. Now the government, you take care of that. So they're protesting to the government. They're not saying, why don't we properly get married and have nice children, look after them? No. We want to run around producing all sorts of, unwanted children. And then when there's problems, the government, you stop this, you fix this. At schools, same thing. The children go to school and the teachers are expected to be the parents. And they're protesting again, you teachers, you should show more responsibility and do this and do that. But actually, there should be family life, properly raised children, and they won't have the problem. So we have the exact problem that Krishna says. If you don't have this basis of society where you're producing good children, you won't have a civilized society. You can't act like cats and dogs and then expect that how do we get all these problems like cats and dogs? Because you're behaving like cats and dogs. So, human lives. Therefore, the devotees, and this is one of the big contributions that, from my perspective, that I've seen. In the West, of course, in the early days, not many from the Indian community, but the benefit is that now we have a strong community. That culture of solid family life is so strong, it's just natural. And, it's a very good example. People look at it and they want to know, how do they do that? They're just so close, they're so friendly to each other, so stable like that. It's a very good example. It's a very good example within ISKCON and out of ISKCON. But the care should be that they should not be attached to those duties. See? Now, one of the things that Prabhupada saw, we're talking about the Western devotees, one of the things Prabhupada saw was that when he was in India, they were so attached to those duties that they wouldn't take to Krishna consciousness. See? So that's the danger. And this is where we learn from each other. And then the Western devotees, Prabhupada went to America, and he's seeing these hippies. They've got no attachment to their family. He's like, this is wonderful. This is like, where do you see such detachment? But also, they've got no attachment to the ritualistic processes of religion. So I can speak to them about the relationship between the soul and the Supreme Soul, and they just lap it up. So Krishna's, 1966, Prabhupada's telling them, Krishna and the gopis, Krishna's got 16,000 wives, Krishna did this, Krishna told Arjuna, kill Kana now, and the devotees, yeah. They just lapped it up. Here is the Supreme Person. I love him. We love Krishna. He's so wonderful. Whatever Krishna wants, let's do it. They had, and now there's a verse here in this Bhagavad Gita, we see this. Now Prabhupada detected this. In the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verse 44, it says, Purvavyasena teneva hriyate hevasopisa jigashu apiyogasha sabda brahmati vatate. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles. Now, yoga means to always, as Prabhupada says it like this, always keep touch with the Supreme Person. Always keep touch with him. As yoga. By virtue of the divine consciousness, so there's a spiritual consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles even without seeking them. So they're just looking for it. It's just like they know something's missing. They're not sure what they're looking for, but that's what's missing in their life, that particular thing. It's not money, it's not more rituals, it's not, Dharma. It's this connection of the soul with the Supreme Soul. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist always stands above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Now, this purport, advanced yogis are not very much attracted to the rituals of the scriptures, but they automatically become attracted to the yoga principles, which can elevate them to complete Krishna consciousness, the highest yoga perfection. In the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 3.33.7, such disregard of Vedic rituals by the advanced transcendentalist is explained as follows. It's a disregard. There's a contemptuous attitude to it. I'm not getting involved in that stuff. Keep it away. Aho batasva pachoto griyam yaj jivagre vatate namatubhyam tepustapaste juhubhu shashnu aryam brahmanuchu namagrananti yete. O my Lord, persons who chant the holy names of your Lordship are far, far advanced in spiritual life, even if born in families of dog-eaters. Such chanters have undoubtedly performed all kinds of austerities and sacrifices, bathed in the sacred places, and finished all scriptural studies. Prabhupada is criticised, you're going over there to those malechas and dog-eaters and here this is how the scriptures describe dog-eaters, yavanas, malechas, and yet that they have an attraction to chanting the holy names of the Lord. So then, now the famous example of this was presented by Lord Chaitanya, who accepted Thakur Haridas as one of his most important disciples. Although Thakur Haridas happened to take his birth in a Muslim family, he was elevated to the post of Brahmacharya by Lord Chaitanya due to his rigidly attended principle of chanting 300,000 holy names of the Lord daily. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And because he chanted the holy name of the Lord constantly, it is understood that in his previous life he must have passed through all the ritualistic methods of the Vedas, known as the Sabda Brahma, unless therefore one is purified one cannot take to the principles of Krishna consciousness or become engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada saw in these malechas and meat eaters and, what have you, in the West, they're completely detached from their family, they're completely detached from the wealth of their wealthy families, and the education which sort of, pushes you in that direction. They're detached from the ritualistic sort of, aspects of religion. And if I ask them to chant Hare Krishna, they chant Hare Krishna enthusiastically. So, Prabhupada saw, and someone asked him a question about that, those first couple of years. Oh, don't you think, Srila Prabhupada, because, they've got this sinful background and this and that they should perform the purificatory processes of the Vedas and what have you, in order to actually become Krishna conscious? And Prabhupada said, none of these boys have any Vedic background. None of these boys and girls have any Vedic background at all. And they're chanting the holy names. They dedicated their lives enthusiastically 24 hours a day in excess, he says, to serving Krishna. And none of them had a Vedic background. But it's understood that whatever in the past, that may be there in the past, but they've surpassed all that. They don't need it now. They just come straight to the point. So, and here Prabhupada gives this example of Haridas Thakur. Now, Haridas Thakur, Prabhupada, is also a principle that such a person who takes pleasure in the self, always chanting the holy names of the Lord, there's no reason for them to perform any duty or not to perform that. So, in the dead of night, it was about midnight, Haridas Thakur, he was chanting his 300,000 names, and there was this very envious zamindar, I think he was Brahmin, that level, and he would, why is this Muslim getting so much respect? Everyone's calling him sadhu, honouring him. I'm the person they should be honouring. That rascal. I'll show all these people what a rascal he is. And he hired one prostitute. You go there and you make him fall down. And then we'll beat him and drive him out of town. So anyway, this prostitute comes, midnight, Haridas Thakur. Oh, yes, you've come to see me? Yes, you are such a handsome young man. Haridas Thakur is about 25. I want to embrace you and enjoy with you. Prabhupada says it like this. Oh, yes, yes. So we shall do that. First, I just need to finish my quota rounds, and when we've done that, we shall enjoy. So all through the night until he'd finished his 300,000 rounds, and then of course, the girl became restless and come back tomorrow, then we shall enjoy. So she comes back. First, I just need to chant some rounds, haven't finished. So he chants all these rounds. She gets restless again. So she comes back the third day. He chants his round. And then she falls at his feet and admits, because she's become pure, you are such a sadhu. You are just so immersed on the spiritual platform. And so, please forgive me, save me from my offence, what I've done. And so Haridas Thakur said, so she told him about the zamindar. Haridas said, I knew all along. I knew who sent you and why you come here. He said, I would have gone immediately you came. Because Haridas Thakur was a renunciate in the renounced order. And he shouldn't have stayed there. Actually, his duty his duty was to get up and leave. But he said, seeing you in such a wretched condition, I stayed just to deliver you. Like that. And now you should give up that business and chant Hare Krishna, which she did. So there you see that, again, the devotee, for the pleasure of Krishna, preaching, they have no need to perform a duty just for the sake of it. Follow rules and regulations for the sake of it, without understanding, this connection with Krishna. So he didn't follow that. And there's no reason why they shouldn't follow it, if that's also helpful, So we have devotees, they get nicely married, they take Brahmachari, they take sannyas, and they follow all the rules and regulations as far as it's helpful for society. And in the Varnashram, Devi Varnashram Dham, they'll need the example of such good devotees following that. But at the same time, a devotee should not be attached to them. They should actually have no purpose to fulfill in performing them or not performing them. And as Arjun, he had a purpose to fulfill when he went to the battle of Kurukshetra, and then seeing what he had to do, he had a purpose to fulfill in not performing his duty. And then when he became Krishna conscious, he was above, transcendental. His only business was what Krishna wants me to do, I should do, and if Krishna doesn't want me to do, and therefore one is above duties that should be done and should not be done. Transcendental, that is the transcendental, that is a Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Now, Prabhupada in this purport, in the Bhagavatam, says a very interesting thing, that even the neophyte devotee in Krishna consciousness who takes up this, who hears from the spiritual, you just have to do, one time Prabhupada was giving a lecture on Karma Yoga, and then at the end he says, just do what Krishna wants you to do and don't do anything else, He just, okay, I'm giving you the philosophy, that's all you really need to know, So basically, that principle. So in 1966, Prabhupada's saying that. He's explaining it, why people do Karma Yoga and why devotees don't have to do it and why they still do it to show an example. He's explaining all of that. But he's saying, you just follow what I want you to do, and if you do that, as he's saying there, even though the neophytes, you are situated transcendentally from the very beginning of your life. From the very beginning of your devotional life. Not that in 10, 20, 30, 40 years you'll be, from the very beginning. So, and the example that Prabhupada gives is that, we may be able to, say we're riding a bike, we may be able to move at a certain speed. Maybe 10, 15, 20 kilometres an hour. Actually, the races, they go about 60 kilometres an hour, which really hurts when they fall off. But Prabhupada says, if you catch the back of a tram, then you go at the same speed of that tram. You can go 80 without any effort. Your little legs are not even moving. See? So when you hear Prithu Maharaj, he followed exactly what the spiritual master said, and that is the secret. That in those days, although they didn't, follow any aspects of Varnashram Dham, and they didn't know anything, and nor was Prabhupada going to, try and introduce that at that point. He just said, just do what I'm doing. I'm showing you how to do it, and I'm telling you what to do. Just do that immediately on the transcendental platform. And they did that. They did that. And therefore, they moved through life at Prabhupada's speed, at Prabhupada's level. We can't, we can't even, but, you can still do that today. There's no reason why not. we have to be very careful because, we had this benefit of this very dharmic aspect of the, Indian congregation. It's a real safety net. There's a lot of sense of duty to family, properly earning, doing everything nicely. Be very careful not to become attached to that. If it somehow impedes us just catching hold of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet and just coming straight to a transcendental platform above what is good and bad in this world, where we have some purpose in doing our, duty or not doing our duty. That's the danger. That's the danger. If there's no purpose in performing our duty or not performing our duty, and we're doing something because Krishna wants us to do, to set a good example, to be properly seated, so many things, and with the spiritual master and the Vaishnava devotees, the Supreme Lord, that's fine. As soon as we have some purpose to it, it becomes Hinduism. It does. And that's different from what Prabhupada can offer us. That's the danger. And we should be very careful not to lose sight of that. So, that history with the early Western devotees is important because there was only that let's just catch hold of Prabhupada and just go directly. And they were literally coming from sinful life, but it didn't matter, they could just go straight to the transcendental platform. We should never forget that. The Hindu community, the devotees from that, Aryan base, let's put it that way, they can learn from that. Otherwise, there may be a tendency to get caught up in the dharmic aspect, not the transcendental aspect. And the Western devotees can learn from the Aryan base. To have that, to be able to set a good example to society. Because not to imitate Sukadeva Goswami or the 6 Goswamis, but, we need, when people look at the Hare Krishnas, they need to see some stable people in stable families. Because we want the whole world to generally follow that. So we need to learn from each other like that. But here in this verse, very important, that the main thing we should keep in mind is our life is meant for our only attachment, our only business is just this being absorbed in this life of self-realization, which means, absorbed in the pastimes of Krishna and chanting the holy names of Krishna and serving Krishna and pleasing Krishna. Our whole life is meant for that. When we're doing that, and if we're performing any activities we're performing that fosters that goal, because everyone has to work. We all have to work. We have to maintain the body, and if we have families, we have to maintain the family. So that has to be done. But Krishna says in the Gita, he says, "My devotee is very dear to me, who is not attached to any residence." I love reading that verse when I do a housewarming. Right? They've spent years, they've got the house, and it's taken them so long, and they're thinking, oh wow, we've put so much in. I designed this myself, You want to take a walk around? When I go there, I do like a ceremony, and they're going, you want to take I think I better, show some interest in the house. And, but, they're like, they want to do a tour, it's like, but, basically, I speak that verse, you should really have no interest in any residence in this world. Otherwise, you've sort of gone a little off track there, isn't it? In the Bhagavad Gita, in knowledge, what are the principles of knowledge? In that, I like to read this one as well when I do verses for the grihastas. 13th chapter. You know this one? But then I explain it, like we've done today. But I like to give them a little shock in the beginning, see their reaction, see the fear on their faces. It says, he says, these things comprise knowledge. The perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest. Huh? I like to read that one. They're like, what? We've come here to a little blessing for the baby? They're so attached. See? And then you see, okay, and these are devotees, with the fear on their faces. So, there's something, that purpose, that sort of attachment, we have to be a little careful, which, is our attachment just for self-realization, just for Krishna consciousness, or are we just a free soul, we're doing things for the purpose of setting a good example and being properly situated as devotees, or are we becoming a little attached? That we have to see, like that. And if we just take that self-realization aspect, we're immediately on the transcendental platform. Any questions or comments?
While you were explaining about universal form, I have if you could comment about Arjun's reaction, like when he saw the universal form. Maybe I didn't understand it properly. That he felt to me like he was looking, like he realized that Krishna is God, but didn't he already know that Krishna is God before? But after realizing, he apologized to him for treating him casually and becoming too friendly with him and all that. So why did he realize that after seeing the cosmic form? And also after that one verse, Krishna says that this form that you're seeing is very difficult to behold.
Yes, why Arjuna seemed to realize that Krishna was God after seeing the universal form, and therefore felt a little embarrassed or ashamed, apologetic that he had been so familiar with Krishna. And the second part is that why the universal form of the Lord is that the universal form is so hard to see, or the form of Krishna?
The form of Krishna, like Krishna says that this form that you are seeing is very difficult to behold. I don't know if he's saying that with reference to the universal form or his.
No, his form of Krishna. They're both difficult, but the form of Krishna is very rare. So, for instance, in the pastimes of Bali Maharaj, Krishna, the universal form was also shown. So there are different, but Krishna's form was not shown then. So some of the different, pastimes involve the, universal form being displayed, but Krishna's form is not always displayed when the universal form is displayed. Krishna appears once in a day of Brahma, but the universal form may be displayed by different, avatars, at other occasions. But the universal form itself is very difficult to behold unless one is given the blessing, by the Lord to be able to perceive that. The form of Krishna is even more rare. Krishna says even the demigods, are ever seeking the opportunity to see that form of Krishna. But Arjuna felt very, when he understood that Krishna was God. Always. Prabhupada at one stage, he said that when Arjuna was refusing to serve Krishna, he was under the Mahamaya, like the material, bewilderment. But most commonly, when Prabhupada speaks in terms of Arjuna, he was saying he was playing a role. So both were there at the same time. That Krishna created such a situation in which case Arjuna came under that, he saw things in a material way, not in a spiritual way. And he saw, it made him pull away from serving Krishna rather than, enthusiastically serving him. So that's the function of the material energy. But, throughout everything, Arjuna simultaneously went along with that, knowing that he's sort of in that situation by Krishna's arrangement. And, he had a sense of that, this is Krishna's arrangement, and Arjuna is, in one sense, playing a role, but that role, that circumstances are so, say, realistic, affecting Arjuna to the very core, that in another sense, he sort of also went with that state of being bewildered. But, it's not an ordinary situation because, for instance, it's like saying sometimes a devotee falls down from Krishna consciousness and they go and they smoke, drugs or, whatever, and they drink alcohol and they eat meat and so many things. I've known devotees. But they know they're in Maya, and that's the difference. They actually know I'm in Maya, So, Maya is like that, it's an illusion. But they know they're an illusion. I'm in so much Maya. Like that. In one sense, Arjuna knew he was in Maya. But not quite like, it wasn't really a fall down. His relationship with Krishna was so strong that really he never lost that, he understood this, let's just go with Krishna with this. Where's this going? He's sort of going with Krishna like that. Because Krishna, Arjuna's most likely been in that circumstance with Krishna before in other universes. So, it's so both were there. So it's basically he's facilitating Krishna's pastimes, and at the same time, he's being affected by the circumstances. And that's because the Supreme Lord we are always under His control. And that was Prabhupada's point in saying that the Mahamaya, one way or another, Arjuna was fully under Krishna's control. That's the point. So whether Krishna put him into Mahamaya, he's under Krishna's control. And Arjuna felt that. I'm in Mahamaya, I'm in Maya. Krishna's in control. He's doing that. Now I'm free from Maya. Krishna's in control. He's doing that. That was Arjuna's mentality. In the devotee, we have that sense also sometimes. We fall into Maya. Oh, now I'm in Maya. I'm under Krishna's control in this Mayic state as a devotee. And then, now I'm engaged in devotional service again. Now again I'm under Krishna's control in the spirit. So we have that sense. But Arjuna, much stronger connection with Krishna. But, both were there. So he knew he was the personality of Godhead. But that form of the universal form where the Lord reveals his power, even someone who knows Krishna so well like Arjuna is terrified of that immense power. You know, sometimes, you know, if you go down to the, like, say there's a hurricane, you know, people won't go near the beach. They won't even go near a mile near it. The power, the fury, you know, there's this, and like they have these tornadoes and people just cry all night in fear. They're just like, it's a nightmare. They're counting each second. You know, sometimes in America they have a tornado goes past in about 30 seconds, everything, and that 30 seconds seems to like hours. They say that. It's like hours and hours, it's about 30 seconds. Or when a plane drops out of the sky, whoosh, you know, 1,000 feet in, you know, 2 seconds. Bang, everyone smashes into the roof, and you just, you know, it's like about 2 or 3 seconds, and it just seems to go forever. So you imagine Arjuna seeing all the power in the universe. It's terrifying. Even Arjuna, you know, he understood this. It's very terrifying. So that's what scared him. It was, you know, and then, you know, still, you know, there's like a transition between coming back to his normal relaxed state with Krishna. So he went from complete fear to a little bit, no more fear but apologetic, and then relax. You see? It's not like you go from complete fear to relax. You know, they do that thing with their face. You know, it's not like that. You know, as a transition, the apologetic was like a transition phase, like that. So, yeah, does that answer that? Yeah, sorry. Any other questions? Yeah. Mm. Why wasn't Prishu one of the Dāsa avatars? Dāsa avatar means it is a song, composition by Govinda Das, I think. What's that? Jayadeva Goswami. Yep. And he describes 10 principal avatars. So those, you know, so you can't make the song too long. How many will get in that list? It's a song, you know. But so, you know, 10 principal avatars. But and in that list are some of the most famous. Right? So they may not necessarily be, you know, it's not that they're better or what have you, but the most famous ones, the people immediately, oh yes, I know Buddha, you know, I know Kalki, you know, all the most famous ones that people can. So quite often a song is like that, you know, the essential things that people can relate to very quickly. So he's put that into that song, like that. Yep. Yeah, so the question is that we should be always absorbed in Krishna's pastimes every day, all day, but sometimes we get the homework and we have, you know, earning money and cleaning the house and so many different things, so what should we do? Well, that's... this is you know, what Srila Prabhupada taught us, that so when we hear in the morning about Priti Maharaj, you know, and that he heard from Sanat Kumara, so you've got these wonderful little 4 Kumara devotees, little children, they're like little children, but they're great sadhus, and they travel all over the universe, And here's Prithu Maharaj is ruling the entire planet like that. So as we go through the day, you know, these things sort of stick in our mind. See? And if we hear, so the main, of all the things that we do as devotees, the main things we do is to hear and chant about these pastimes, and then we can remember. The more we hear and chant, the more we remember. So you see that devotees who are really good at hearing and chanting, all day long, no matter what they're doing, they're thinking of Krishna. So I'm not one of them, but I do have my occasion where I think of Krishna. I remember one time I was digging a hole, right? And it's really hard dirt. So you're digging a hole and I've got to put a post in it. I've got to dig the hole about this deep in hard dirt. Backbreaking, very hard to think of Krishna. Anyway, while I was doing that, I had been reading about Lord Varaha. So while I was doing that, this thought of Lord Varaha came into my head. I thought, wow, that's, so wonderful. It'd be good if he was here. And then I thought to myself, actually, Lord Varaha, he had the special tusks. He could pick up the earth. He could literally balance it on his tusks. And I thought, why did he assume the form of a pig, a boar? Because boars are they're the perfect instrument or design to get right down to the murky depths and they sniff out and they find that, there's the earth there and it's all dark and mushy and they pick it up, and they got a good grip with their tusk and they bring it up like that. And I thought to myself, I'm using the wrong shovel. Right? Because I had this long-handled, flat-nosed shovel. And I thought, I need a small-handled shovel because as you go down, the handle gets in the way with a pointy tip. And so I went and bought one and I dug that hole really easily. So, you'd be surprised how everything you're doing, Krishna has done something to do with that. See, when you're doing your homework, you think, gee, Krishna also had to do his homework. But I guess, he was learning a lot of fun things. How to pretend to be someone that you're not. Imagine if they taught that in school. Right? You should be a teacher one day teach those things, and all your kids will be thinking, forget the homework. Let's learn how to disguise ourselves as someone else, something practical, something you can use in life. Yeah. But, as the more you hear about Krishna and his pastimes, actually everything we do in this life, every single thing, actually there's a wonderful thing that Krishna did related to that. But we hear about it more and more and more. And then that ability, it comes. And then I was digging that hole and I was in ecstasy. Thank you, Lord Varaha. You saved me again. You saved the earth, now you've saved me. Yeah? Right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.